All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And Christopher, I just realized that I forgot to ask you, how do you pronounce your last name before we hit the record button? So if you could help me out, that would be awesome.
Absolutely. So it's Nicolaysen. So it looks pretty
Nicolaysen.
long, but Nicolaysen. Yep,
Okay,
just like it's spelled out, said the exact same way.
perfect, perfect. All right. Well, Christopher, man, I'm excited to have you here. Welcome to the show, and excited to have you and have this conversation today.
Thanks so much. Me too.
Oh, absolutely. So I want to start out really quick. I want to give a shout out to Jessica over at the podcast guest platform. I'll tell you, I am so appreciative of her because probably about a year and a half ago, she started reaching out to me and said, Kevin, I listened to a couple episodes of your podcast, and you are
Mhm.
doing something really unique. I don't know of any other podcast that has got your angle and that is all focused about relationships.
Right.
And she goes, I have a couple people that I think would be a great guest for your podcast. Are you open to me referring them to you? And I said, yeah. I said, I'd love to talk with them. Well, like I said, that was about a year and a half ago. I don't know how many people I've met that have come through her now, but it's a pretty good number. And and her track record is impeccable because not once has she steered me wrong. Not once.
Oh,
and
okay.
and so now every time I get an email from her, I don't even know, I don't even need, I mean, I do, but I just know that what whoever she's recommended, I'm like in. And
Yeah.
and I will go look at their profile and stuff on the podcast website, but it's like I am incredibly appreciative of Jessica and just Jessica, if you happen to be listening to this episode, thank you so much. And what I'd like to do is start with Christopher. I want to turn it over to you. So I want to set a little bit of context here for our listeners, and I want to give you the opportunity to talk about what you guys do, what you do, what who you serve, who your company serves, what inspires you most about the
Yeah.
work you're doing and the impact you're making. And we'll start there and just kind of start the conversation there.
Perfect. Well, I think you set the bar really high by talking about how Jessica hasn't given you any duds yet. So that's a really high bar to start with here. So hopefully I don't disappoint. So I own a personal injury business law firm in
Okay.
Colorado Springs, and we've grown. We opened in February of 2017, started with three attorneys, and then have since grown to four attorneys, plus myself, and a support staff of about 16.
Okay.
And so, right around 20 people, we've grown now into a seven-figure business multiple years in a row. And goal is constantly to keep scaling. But the reason that I love doing what I do, so I started out in law school later in life. I was 35 whenever I went, graduated closer to 39, almost 40, took the bar exam, took it twice, not by choice, but took it twice and ended up passing on my second time. And then did family law, divorces for about 5 years.
Okay.
And so then ultimately ended up, whenever we started this, I was a family law attorney, shifted out of that and shifted into a more of a CEO role. And really, for me at least, the why I do what I do, it's more for to give my team the ability to succeed and really kind of shine in their own areas that they're all in. I tell them all the time, I want to hire adults to do an adult job, and I have zero desire to micromanage. And so that's not within my purview, but I treat my team, they're my clients, right? They're my customers. But then that gives them the ability to help our clients that we get in as a firm day in and day out and really let them shine. And so I date myself a little bit whenever I call myself like a John Stockton from the legal field, where I just want to dish and assist, right? Just assist my team left and right
Yeah.
as much as possible. And so as a CEO, I think that that's my job is to listen and then to help them with the resources that they can and help them rise up so that they can do a really good job for our clients.
Yeah. Wow. Very cool. So and you don't have to reveal names or anything like that, but What is an example of a client that you were just able to help in a very profound way, and like where you guys, where you personally were just incredibly proud of that? What's an example of something like that, Christopher?
Yeah, I think so. As some examples, like what we try to do, because we're big fans of providing what we call excellent customer service. And I, having worked in retail and restaurants in the past, um, I know that customer service is something that we talk a lot about in those two areas. But in the legal field, or I think other, kind of white collar business fields, it's not really talked about a lot, right? And so we talk about it a lot, at our firm. So some of the things that we do is we do gift basket drawings for people in the community,
Okay.
and then they get to come in and get those. But also too, where our clients have been seriously injured and may have to have surgery or things like that, we send flowers, handwritten thank you cards to them for coming in to us. We do birthday calls with them and birthday cards. Additionally, for us too, it's about constant communication, because one of the biggest areas where attorneys get grieved or kind of talked to by the people above us is for not communicating enough. And
Okay.
so for us, we want to set a really high standard for what excellent communication looks like, and we're going to do that in a way that our clients are okay with. We've had clients that not only, that don't want to text, so then we'll meet them in person. We've had clients where we go to their home and do home visits with them and actually sit down and talk to them about how has this thing affected you? And we call that our human story, right? So I want to find out, what is their human story? Who were they before the crash and who are they after the crash? And really connect with them in a way that makes us more than just, a transactional relationship and then we move on, but we're actually humans helping other humans in that respect. And so I think it's those, maybe it's not just one specific, but it's those instances day in and day out of trying to not only get to help the person, but how can we make those touches for them in their own unique way that ultimately make their customer experience and their client journey for us as best as it can be.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Very good. Okay, so now that we've got a little bit of context set, I'm going to switch gears just a little bit and I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of our listeners. So, Christopher, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons who completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
Yeah, so I think and the answer is yes, and I have two that I'll share.
Okay, okay,
And they're both post starting the law firm.
okay,
The first one is a gentleman. His name's John Fisher. He's a medical malpractice attorney out in, not a med mal. He's a catastrophic injury attorney out in New York. But
okay,
John hosted a thing called the Mastermind Experience. And so we opened in February of 2017. And then in September of 2017, my wife and I went out to the Mastermind Experience in Washington, D.C.
okay.
And John facilitates the whole thing. And we sit down, at a nice dinner. And then here I am as kind of a newish lawyer with all of these really experienced, attorneys and kind of in this room with these very successful people. And John is probably one of the kindest and most gracious people I've met, not only in connecting people, but also in pushing us to do better and to become more. And so, what we do then is we end up getting into rooms where we sit on with others, and they're called hot seat sessions. So, what is our one big issue that we're having? And we get to talk about that privately with a group of other people. And sometimes John is the facilitator, other times it's another attorney, but or law firm owner. And we all try to be brutally honest and help each other with our issues. And he's like, we're not here just to, help each other and tell everybody how awesome we're doing. We're here to help each other grow and get better.
Yep.
So I've told John in the past that, but for that experience, one is our firm would not have niched down completely to PI.
Okay.
And then number two, it also got me in a room with people that were at a level where I wanted to get. So it showed me what was possible. And so I've talked to John, because I've gone to multiple of his mastermind events, multiple times about, how grateful I am to know somebody who put something like that on and can help connect us. Plus, deep down, he's just a genuinely good human.
Yeah.
And it's that was my big thing with John. And I think that but for going to that, the firm would not be where it is today.
Very
And so
good.
that's one of the qualities that he has. The
Uh-huh.
second one is a coach that we hired probably about 2 years in, and her name's Melissa Shanahan, and Melissa owns a company called Velocity Work, which does quarterly retreats and monthly check-ins with their law firm clients. And so for us, until that point, we hadn't really done anything yet. We were just kind of like figuring it out as you go, right? It's kind of like a hodgepodge or piecemeal of a business. But she helped us get really intentional, helped us out with our core values, our org chart. Everybody knew what their roles were, and we had clearly defined roles now, and then helped us out with our quarterly rocks from Gino Wickman's traction, things like
Uh-huh.
that.
Uh-huh.
And so that for us as entrepreneurs was huge because we had somebody now to hold us accountable. And so one of the things I've always said about being a business owner is the greatest thing ever about being a business owner is you have no one to tell you what to do. But
Yep.
the worst thing ever about being a business owner is you have no one to tell you what to do. So I'm such a believer in coaches that Melissa, as our first like true coach, was such a breath of fresh air because not only is she one of the nicest people I know, but she also was fully bought in on seeing us succeed. But she also has, I find the nicest people have a way of holding you accountable without yelling or being real like obtuse or things like
Uh-huh.
that. She was very polite about it, but she could do it. Her saying, "Come on, guys," or "You could do better." You just feel the weight of the world, like you don't want to disappoint her.
Yeah.
And so it's that kind of thing where I've had plenty of just hard, phone calls with her and things like that. I've met her and her family up in Denver. And it just so happened that she happened to be based out of Denver, which is only about an hour away. And
Okay.
so it was a nice, really good, cohesive relationship. But again, with somebody like her, the way I look at that relationship is, but for that, we don't actually have the foundational pieces that we needed to have the business going and moving forward. And so that gave us the foundational structure that we needed within the business. But I think from a relationship standpoint, when we talk about those, it's I think about it a lot with coaches is like you need to find a coach that's going to be able to be cohesive with you and be able to, you're going to listen to what they're saying, but they're also going to listen to what you're looking for and not create their own goals and take over your goals. And
Yeah.
so for me, that's been one of the biggest things was finding coaches like that. And then as you kind of progress, it's like now, okay, well, it may be time for a different coach. Now what personality traits do I need? And so I think that that's always been the thing that I'm looking at.
Yeah. 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 So what if you look at your relationship with this coach,
Hmm.
what is an example of something that has transpired in the business or a result that you got that that you look back on and go like, wow, that was really phenomenal. And you also know that hands down that would have never happened if not for your relationship with her.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for us it was making that first true high level attorney hire.
Okay.
And so for us, like we were kind of, you're gun shy about making that first hire as an entrepreneur because you're
Sure.
like, do I need a whole year of savings? How much do I need? So it's having those deep, hard conversations with her about, is this something we need? Because it's then trying to figure out what are our roles? Is
Uh-huh.
it something where is it the right seat on the bus for us? And from where we want to get, will we actually be able to grow and move forward with that person?
Yeah.
And so by hiring within that role, which we did, it helped us expand out how many cases we could take. It helped us now envision that this wasn't as hard, like the blocks and barriers that we looked at,
Mhm.
it wasn't as bad as what we thought. And I don't know about you, Kevin, but I think a lot of times the what ifs in our head get away and are a lot more severe than the reality whenever we finally
Totally.
actually trigger, right?
Yes.
And so I think she really helped us see that and go, okay. And then you make mistakes within the hiring, and we did.
Yeah.
But then it's okay. And we still make mistakes today, but you keep getting better at it. It's almost like you keep getting your reps in over and over
Yep.
again, and we keep getting better. So I do think that is one of the biggest things. I don't think you can grow or scale without hiring. It's really, really difficult. You're going to
Oh,
need others to help because generally too, and just like you with this podcast is it's about relationships, you can't grow on your own
that's
generally,
right.
right? Like you need others. And
Yes.
so I need others to guide, to lift us up, to hold us accountable, to do all of these other things. But I think even within the business, I need other team members to come in and be really, really good at their area
Yes.
so that then we all can be lifted up together.
Yeah. That's such a huge, and you are so right that, yeah, we can't grow when it's just us, where we
Yeah.
run out to bandwidth issues, time issues, all of that kind of stuff, and yeah, that's huge. That's huge. Well, so what is your vision for the firm going forward from here, Christopher?
Yeah, so the vision is, and we have a pretty like laid out org chart that kind of breaks that down. But the reality here is within the next 5 years is to hit become an eight-figure firm,
Okay.
to expand outside of, so within, we're all licensed in the state of Colorado, so we can expand outside of Colorado Springs. So to be able to expand outside of Colorado Springs into some other smaller towns, or not
Uh-huh.
even smaller, but not Denver proper, but kind of, other cities about the same size as Colorado Springs. And then, but within that, though, we have to be very careful and strategic because I don't want to lose the customer service that we have, right? So we've always talked about there can be those pain points on growth of certain revenue amounts, but also certain team member amounts too.
Yeah.
So as we scale, we've got to get in the right C-suite people. And I've started doing that on a fractional basis right now to start with. And so getting in a fractional CFO, getting in, the marketing person and what have you. And so we want to kind of be able to move into those directions so that even me for myself, that my voice, ultimately the vision is there, but the voice comes back a bit so that they can take over as the voice ultimately. And I want it to be a place too, because I don't know about other businesses out there, and it's been a long time since I've worked restaurants or retail or what have you. But the reality here is as lawyers, you watch Suits or other things like that. It's a pretty high like exit rate and depression rate. Alcohol is pretty high and other things like that. I want to create a work environment where it's not a terrible place to become an attorney and that people can come in and we can work collaboratively as a team. But also at the end of the day, people can just go home and be with their families, that they're not sitting there stressed day in and day out. It can be a high stressful job, but yet, when it's time to be done, you're done. And then you're present. And I'm huge into being present because you have to be present with your family. Because then, if you're good there, then you're probably going to deliver a better work product and client experience.
Yeah.
And so, to me, it's those kind of things. And I don't want to sacrifice that just solely for growth, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think that you can get lost in that cycle of growth when then you start losing those good touches that you had.
Yeah.
Um, and one of the things is we just got an award locally in the Springs for one of the best workplaces in town. And it's really important to me. And I think out of all the awards that we've ever gotten, is that's probably the most important. And, to be able to have the team members internally say, we really enjoy working here and that this is a good spot to work. And I think about it with our clients and with our team members is we're a good place to work and we're a good place to, have your case taken care of, but we're not the right place for everyone. And that's okay. I'm totally okay with that. And I generally with that, those people, both employees and clients, is I wish you the best at your next endeavor. But ultimately, I think maybe when, years ago is I would have thought differently and I would have been really like, kind of hurt, my heart would hurt or what have you if somebody left, but that's okay, and people come and they go, and that's all right. But for the season, while they're here, I want to be a good spot that where people can come. What?
I just realized I touched my
There-
mic and shut it off
Yep,
there.
there it was.
You
Yeah,
touch it in just the right spot and it'll shut it
gotcha.
off. And
Yes, yeah,
so, but
yeah,
there is such a weight lifted when we like you said that like hey, some clients are a right fit and others are not.
yeah,
And some people are a right fit and others are not. And for our teams and what have you. And some people might even come in for a season and then after that season, they're ready to move on. And
Yeah.
and all of that is totally okay. And
Yeah.
when we get to the point where we realize that and we are okay with that, and not only
Yeah.
that we're not just okay with it, but we know that where when a void comes up, when an opening comes up, that's an opportunity for somebody else to step in that is going to fill that in an even better way.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. No, and
and
we have this, me and my leadership team, we talk about this a lot is like sometimes the people that got, when you first start out as an entrepreneur, you've got a tight core, right? And you look around and everything's kumbaya and this will be the group.
yeah,
And that's the relationship.
yeah,
But the reality then is you start setting your goals and your next steps. Sometimes that those people that you started out with aren't going to be the same crew that's going to get you to
that's
here
right,
or to,
that's right.
A, B, and C. And
Yeah.
that's again, it's totally okay. And I had an employee who I ended up letting go, and he looked at me at the end of at that time, and he's like, "Well, you've changed." And I'm like, "You're right, I have."
Mhm.
And I think if we're not changing throughout and we're just staying the same, we're probably doing a disservice to our team
Yeah,
because we should constantly be in a state of change, which is growth and
yeah,
improvement. And we're seeing the vision of what the business is in a different light.
absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Well, Christopher, I really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation today. And I really love who you are as a person and how you show up. And for anybody else like listening to this going, man, Kev, I really like Christopher too. And I really like what he stands for and how he shows up. And maybe there's even some folks that have been kind of hearing what you shared and thinking like, man, it might be worthwhile to follow up with Christopher and stuff.
Yeah.
And so what any websites, any resources we can share with the podcast
Yeah,
when we release it?
absolutely. My business website is springslawgroup.com.
Okay.
And you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Christopher Nicolaysen. And
Okay.
then I'm also on TikTok at CN The Law. So my two initials and then The Law. And then
Okay.
you can also call or text me at any time. I love talking about the business side. So I may be an attorney, but generally I handle the business side and love talking about anything from a growth standpoint. I think the thing, Kevin, I would say too, to a lot of entrepreneurs that may be listening, you may feel like you're on an island and
Oh
that
yeah.
nobody else understands what you're going through. But the reality is there are a ton of people, and we're so much better out there as a community. And just sometimes crowdsourcing and talking to a few different people can be really, really helpful.
Yeah.
And so you're more than welcome to give me a call or text me at 719-291-6346. And that's my personal cell.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, like I said, I really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation today. Any last thing that you feel led to share, Christopher, before we call it a wrap?
Yeah, I would say too, and it just like pinged a little bit, even from the relationship side, is if you're an entrepreneur out there and you're trying to figure out people, a book that a friend of mine recommended earlier this year is a book by Cy Wakeman. It's C-Y
Okay.
Wakeman, and it's called No Ego. I cannot
Okay.
recommend it enough. I think it's absolutely super helpful. I love Cy's approach to leadership and to how do we deal with, deal and work with our team members. And so I think it can be from a relationship standpoint a really, really good book to check out.
Oh, very good. Very good. Well, I'm gonna go check it out and stuff too.
Perfect. Awesome.
So,
Awesome.
well, Christopher, once again, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation today. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kevin.